Welcome to the Papyrus Global TV Africa News Highlights. I am Christiana Babayo, and here's what we are covering today. In Zambia, the government pushes back on a controversial U.S. health funding agreement worth over $1 billion amid concerns about mining interests and data sharing clauses. In Nigeria, the newly appointed Acting Inspector General of Police sends a strong warning to officers nationwide, declaring an end to impunity within the force, while federal authorities deliver relief to storm-ravaged communities in Ekiti state. In Uganda, police arrest two women under the country's Anti-Homosexuality Act as a livestock disease outbreak cripples markets and threatens farmers' livelihoods. And in the Gambia, a historic genocide case against Myanmar advances at the International Court of Justice. We begin in Zambia. The Zambian government has delayed signing a major 5-year health funding agreement with the United States valued at more than $1 billion. The proposed arrangement is designed to support Zambia's fight against HIV, malaria, maternal mortality, and disease outbreaks. It also requires Zambia to contribute approximately $340 million in counterpart funding over the same period. However, negotiations stalled after Lusaka objected to specific clauses in a revised draft agreement. Government officials stated that certain provisions did not align with Zambia's national interests. While authorities declined to disclose the exact content of the disputed section, civil society groups and international observers have raised concerns. At the center of the controversy are two sensitive issues: allegations that U.S. support may be tied to mining sector collaboration, a long-term data sharing framework reportedly lasting up to 10 years. Zambia is Africa's second-largest copper producer after Democratic Republic of Congo, and it holds significant reserves of cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, graphite, and rare earth elements, minerals critical to global energy transitions. In previous statements, U.S. officials suggested that broader cooperation, including business reforms and mining partnerships, could unlock substantial grant packages. But Zambia's Ministry of Health has insisted that the agreement under discussion is strictly about health programming and not natural resources. Civil society organizations within Zambia argue that transparency is essential, especially if the agreement includes unilateral data flows or external economic interests. The delay now places the agreement in limbo, with diplomatic discussions ongoing. Meanwhile, President Hakainde Hichilema has issued a stern message to newly appointed government officials. Speaking at a swearing-in ceremony at State House, the president emphasized that public office is a privilege entrusted by more than 21 million citizens. He warned that those unwilling to serve national development goals should decline appointments rather than misuse public trust. Among those sworn in were Ernest Mokua as Controller of Internal Audits, Idinsiye Lenga as Director General for Public-Private Partnerships, and Joseph Akafumba as Zambia's High Commissioner to Nigeria. The president further cautioned diplomats abroad to prioritize investment promotion and avoid behavior that could tarnish Zambia's international image. His remarks come at a time when the country is navigating complex economic diplomacy, particularly regarding international aid and resource partnerships. Nigeria's newly appointed Acting Inspector General of Police, Tunji Disu, has delivered a firm and uncompromising message to officers across the country. The culture of impunity within the Nigeria police force must come to an end. Disu made the declaration shortly after being decorated with his new rank by President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja. The ceremony marked a transition in leadership at a time when public confidence in law enforcement remains fragile and national security challenges persist. The acting IGP takes over from Kayode Egbetokun, who resigned citing family considerations. While the leadership change was described as procedural, analysts believe it comes at a critical moment for Nigeria's internal security architecture. In his first public remarks after assuming office, he emphasized that officers must fundamentally rethink their relationship with the public. Nigerians are your bosses, he declared, a statement that signals a shift towards accountability and service-driven policing. For years, segments of the Nigeria public have raised concerns about police misconduct, allegation of corruption, abuse of power and excessive use of force. Although reforms initiatives have been introduced in the past, implementation has often been inconsistent. Disu now says his administration will operate on a zero-tolerance policy for corruption within the ranks. He pledged to strengthen disciplinary mechanisms, reinforce ethical standards, and prioritize respect for human rights in operational procedures. Beyond internal discipline, the acting IGP acknowledged the broader security environment confronting the country. Nigeria continues to face complex threats, including banditry in the northwest, insurgency in parts of the northeast, organized crime networks, and communal violence in various regions. He stressed that police effectiveness cannot be achieved without public cooperation, community trust, and intelligence sharing. Security Security experts note that restoring credibility to the Nigeria police force will require more than strong rhetoric. It will demand structural reforms, including improved training, welfare support for officers, modern equipment, transparent complaint systems, and stronger civilian oversight mechanisms. Disu's appointment may represent a recalibration of tone at the top. Whether it translates into measurable improvements on the ground will depend on policy follow-through, political backing, and sustained institutional discipline. For now, the message from Nigeria's new police leadership is clear: impunity is no longer accepted. In Ekiti State, federal intervention has brought temporary relief to communities devastated by a powerful rainstorm that swept through parts of the state earlier this month. The Senate leader representing Ekiti Central Senatorial District, Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, collaborated with the National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA) to distribute emergency relief materials to affected residents. The storm, described by locals as sudden and destructive, tore off rooftops, collapsed buildings, and left hundreds of families displaced across multiple local government areas, including Ado, Irepodun, Efon, and Ijero. Entire neighborhoods reported significant structural damage. For many families, years of investment in their homes were undone in a matter of hours. In response, NEMA coordinated the distribution of food items, essential household supplies, and temporary support materials aimed at alleviating immediate hardship. Speaking through representatives during the distribution exercise, Senator Bamidele expressed solidarity with the victims, describing the disaster as both heartbreaking and destabilizing for affected communities. He noted that while relief materials cannot fully compensate for the losses suffered, they serve as a necessary bridge towards recovery. The Director General of NEMA also emphasized the importance of disaster preparedness, highlighting the increasing frequency of extreme weather events across parts of Nigeria. She urged residents to adopt preventive measures such as reinforcing building structures, ensuring proper drainage systems, and planting protective vegetation where appropriate. Traditional leaders in the affected areas commended the intervention, describing it as a demonstration of responsive representation and federal-state collaboration. However, they called for longer-term solutions, including improved urban planning standards and more resilient infrastructure to withstand severe weather conditions. Climate experts have repeatedly warned that extreme weather patterns, including intense storms and flooding, are becoming more frequent across West Africa. Such events not only threaten homes but also disrupt livelihoods, education, and local economic activity. For Ekiti residents, the immediate priority remains rebuilding. While relief materials provide temporary comfort, many families now face the difficult task of reconstructing damaged properties and restoring stability. The situation underscores the broader challenge of disaster management in Nigeria, balancing emergency response with sustainable resilience planning. Authorities in northwestern Uganda have confirmed the arrest of two women accused of engaging in same-sex conduct in public in what is being described as one of the most widely reported enforcement actions under the country's 2023 Anti-Homosexuality Act. The legislation, formerly known as the Anti-Homosexuality Act, was enacted in 2023, allowing intense parliamentary debate and national discussion. It prescribes severe penalties for certain offences, including lengthy prison terms and, in specific aggravated cases, capital punishment provisions. Supporters argue the law reinforces Uganda's cultural and moral framework, while critics say it reflects with constitutional protections and international human rights standards. According to local police reports, the two women were detained after community members allegedly reported that they described as public indecency. Law enforcement officials stated that the arrests were conducted in accordance with the law and that investigations are ongoing. The suspects were later released on bond pending further inquiry. The incident has reignited debate within Uganda and beyond. Human rights organizations argue that the act has intensified fear among LGBTQ individuals and contributed to social stigma. Advocacy groups say some citizens now avoid seeking healthcare, legal protection, or public services due to concerns about discrimination or arrest. On the other hand, government officials and some religious and community leaders insist that the law reflects Uganda's sovereign right to legislate according to its social values. They maintain that the majority of Ugandans support the measure and view it as protective of traditional family structures. Uganda's government has consistently framed criticism from Western governments and international organizations as interference in domestic affairs. When the law was first passed, several foreign governments expressed concern and certain development partnerships were reassessed. Authorities in Kampala, however, defended the legislation as a matter of national sovereignty. Legal analysts note that enforcement cases like this are likely to test how the act is interpreted by courts. Questions remain regarding evidentiary standards, due process, and the balance between public morality laws and constitutional rights. Beyond the courtroom, the case highlights the broader tension between domestic legal frameworks and global human rights advocacy. Uganda, like many African nations, is navigating complex social debates amid increasing global scrutiny. For now, the two women remain free on bond as investigations continue, but the public discussion surrounding the act is far from settled. Uganda is also confronting a significant agricultural and economic challenge. In Ntungamo district, an outbreak of foot-and-mouth disease (FMD) has forced authorities to suspend livestock markets and establish quarantine checkpoints in a bid to contain the spread. Foot-and-mouth disease is a highly contagious viral infection affecting cloven-hoofed animals such as cattle, goats, sheep, pigs, and certain wildlife species. While it rarely infects humans, its economic impact can be devastating in countries where livestock farming is a primary livelihood. District veterinary officials confirmed that infected animals were detected earlier, prompting emergency containment protocols. Authorities quickly suspended cattle markets and livestock trading activities, restricted animal movement across district borders, set up disinfection and inspection checkpoints, deployed veterinary teams to affected communities. Officials say vaccines are available, but compliance has been uneven. Some farmers have reportedly resisted vaccination efforts due to cost concerns, mistrust, or misinformation about side effects. For Ntungamo, a district known for its vibrant livestock trade, the suspension of markets has created immediate financial strain. Cattle markets are central to rural income generation. Farmers rely on weekly sales to pay school fees, cover health insurance expenses, purchase agricultural inputs, support household needs. With markets closed, many households are experiencing reduced cash flow. Local authorities have also noted a drop in district revenue collection as livestock trading contributes significantly to local government income. Agricultural economists warn that prolonged market closures could ripple through the supply chain, affecting meat processors, transporters, and traders in neighboring districts. The West African nation of the Gambia continues to press forward with one of the most consequential legal battles in modern international law, its genocide case against Myanmar and the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Filed in 2019, the case accuses Myanmar of violating the 1948 Genocide Convention through alleged acts committed against the Rohingya Muslim minority. The proceedings focus on events that escalated in 2016 and 2017 when Myanmar's military operations in Rakhine State forced hundreds of thousands of Rohingya to flee across the border into Bangladesh amid reports of killings, sexual violence, and village burnings. Though geographically distant from Southeast Asia, the Gambia invoked the principle of erga omnes party, a doctrine allowing any state to the Genocide Convention to hold another state accountable for alleged violations, even if it is not directly affected. Legal analysts say this move marked a bold assertion of universal accountability. By initiating proceedings, the Gambia positioned itself as a defender of international law and a voice for vulnerable populations beyond its borders. Observers note that this legal step was supported by the Organization for Islamic Cooperation (OIC), reflecting broader concern among member states about the plight of the Rohingya. The case is being heard at the International Court of Justice, the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Unlike the International Criminal Court, which prosecutes individuals, the ICJ adjudicates disputes between states. In early hearings, the Gambia argued that Myanmar failed to prevent genocidal acts, punish perpetrators, and preserve evidence. Myanmar has denied genocidal intent, maintaining that its military operations targeted insurgents and were conducted within the framework of national security. In 2020, the court issued provisional measures ordering Myanmar to prevent acts that could fall under the Genocide Convention and to preserve evidence related to alleged crimes. These measures were widely viewed as a significant interim step, signaling that the court considered the allegations plausible enough to warrant urgent safeguards. Since then, written pleadings and jurisdictional arguments have continued, with both sides submitting detailed memorials and counter-memorials. Legal scholars describe the proceedings as one of the most comprehensive genocide cases in recent history, not only because of the scale of alleged atrocities, but also because of the legal principles involved. The outcome could clarify how the Genocide Convention is interpreted in modern context, define the scope of state responsibility for mass atrocities, reinforce or reshape obligations to prevent genocide, influence future cases involving alleged crimes against humanity. The case also underscores a broader evolution in international law, one in which smaller states increasingly use global judicial institutions to pursue accountability. Beyond the courtroom, the proceedings carry diplomatic weight. The case has drawn attention from governments, human rights organizations, and international legal observers worldwide. Myanmar has undergone significant political turmoil since the initial filing of the case, including a military coup in 2021. Questions have risen about representation, strict continuity, and authority of officials appearing before the court. Despite these complexities, the case have continued to move forward procedurally. For the Gambia, the legal action has elevated its profile on the international stage. Leaders in Banjul have framed the case as a moral obligation, a stand against impunity, and a commitment to upholding global norms. And that concludes today's edition of the Papyrus Global TV Africa News Highlights. From sovereignty debates in Zambia to security reforms and disaster response in Nigeria, from legal and social tensions in Uganda to a historic international justice case led by the Gambia, these stories remind us that Africa is not standing still. The continent is actively shaping its political direction, confronting complex challenges, and asserting its voice on the global stage. At the Papyrus Global TV, we remain committed to delivering balanced reporting, deeper context, and stories that matter, without noise, without bias, and without compromise. If you value credible African journalism, we invite you to support our platform. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and share this broadcast. Visit thepapyrusdaily.com for continuous updates and in-depth reports. And for follow us across all social media platforms at the Papyrus Global. I am Christiana Babayo. Thank you for watching.